my handsome and pretty little Cobras, and welcome back to the Cobras Nest. For those of you who are new, my name is Mignon Cobra and I make minimalism videos. Although recently I've kind of had a name change. My name is Natalie Cobra now. So I don't know, it's kind of hard to override that because, you know, Mignon Cobra rolls well with minimalism. So we'll just see how that goes. Anyway, today's video is going to be 15 ways to do more, be more, and buy less. Minimalist's guide. So without further ado, let's just get into the video. Let's get it, let's go. Woo! Before we get started, as usual, if you wish to help with my channel, consider checking out my Patreon. The link is down below. I make monthly vlogs and milestones for my Patreons. And if that's of no interest to you, then you can just consider supporting my channel by giving this video a thumbs up, a like, and a subscribe for the algorithm. All right, so number one, declutter your shopping apps. I know that the advice of like, just stay out of the stores is just no longer valid. Nowadays, with everything being so virtual and accessible, you're gonna have to delete those apps. And I speak from personal experience. I could scroll on the Sephora app forever. If you've been following my channel for a period of time, you guys know that although I am a minimalist, there is one thing that I'm not a minimalist about, and that is my makeup. I love makeup. I think I have a bit more than I feel comfortable with. No matter how much I strive for just having it fit in a freaking little pouch, it just keeps growing, and these PR packages are not helping. The point that I'm trying to say is there gets a point where if you really don't want to keep feeling or fueling the shopping addiction, you're gonna have to get rid of the apps. I'm not saying forever, just till at least you get a handle on your shopping habits. Delete them, put them away in a folder, out of sight, out of mind. I think that this is just similar to the idea that if you're an alcoholic, stop going to the liquor store till you get a hold of what's really driving the shopping addiction. Okay, number two, start reading more. So for me, when I got rid of the shopping habit back in like 2016 and I became a minimalist, I used to spend all of my time at the mall and I needed to figure out something else to do with my time. And one of the things that I picked up was I started reading more. I used to read a lot when I was in high school and elementary. I loved to read. So I don't know why, I guess maybe in high school, I decided to be like a girly girl and glow up, and I started spending a lot more time at the mall looking at makeup, jewelry, going to Forever 21, looking at clothes, and kind of forgot about reading. But I've come back to it now that I'm a minimalist. I read a lot more. I recommend you could either read books if you're very anti, books like physical copies, because I know a lot of minimalists are. You can get digital copies. You can buy a Kobo or a Kindle. I also have a Kindle. I have that on my phone, and you can just purchase and buy it and have it on your phone. I know that a lot of people might argue, yeah, well, you can't resell it to other people, like the copy's yours. You can't win in every area. So if you want a hard copy, you can go to secondhand stores. If not, you just want to carry it with you, your virtual library. Kindle's the way to go. Okay, number three, watch less TV. I think I heard that on average, millionaires only watch 1 hour TV a day, but people who are poor or financially struggling watch 3 to 4 hours a day. And I mean, like, that's all fine and well. And to my surprise, that actually also included YouTube, which I'm like super guilty of. Like, I could easily watch hours of YouTube. I love YouTube. I grew up watching YouTube. So take this as somebody who struggled with this too. So essentially what you want to do is you want to, decrease the amount of screen time that you have. I don't know if I should include social media in this too, but yeah, let's throw that right in there too. I mean, like, who hasn't scrolled on TikTok for 8 hours? Yeah, watch more educational content if you do watch it. Like maybe that 1 hour, maybe split into 30 minutes, maybe watch a podcast or listen to a podcast or watch like a how-to video on something that's of interest to you. I think this will help a lot because now you're doing more, you're being more, you're investing in yourself, and you're, I guess in some ways, buying less, because sometimes TVs can be a little bit commercially, especially if you're not careful about the kind of content that you watch. I know that for myself, I had to really select and declutter the type of Instagram content that I was consuming because it was starting to become one long commercial reel. Buy this luxury handbag, buy this type of makeup, buy this type of hair product, and buying more does not enrich your life the way that doing more does. So be careful about the kind of content that you ingest. In some ways, it's food for the mind. Just like when you eat junk food, it's not good for your body. When you watch junk, it's not good for your mind. Okay, number four, go out into nature. Going out into nature is one of the closest ways to being more, in my opinion, because in nature, at least, I mean, I guess you could go into nature and you could go shopping for farms and plots of land and trees. I guess you could buy more in nature too. But let's just assume that you're going out into nature for pastime and a hike and just being more relaxed. That is a good way to practice just being present in the moment, being present in the environment, soaking in that nature. It doesn't have to be like a weekend long excursion. It could just be for a couple hours, an hour or two, even just a walk around the neighborhood if you have access to that. Gives you this practice of being more as opposed to spending more time at the mall, shopping more, and consuming more. Okay, number five, create more, whether that be more art, more music, more literature. When you are creating, you're doing, you are giving back to the world, you're manifesting more for not only yourself, but for others. When you consume, it's for you, right? You are consuming. You're kind of like a bottomless pit. You're filling in your own void. But when you create and you give to others in the form of like creating art, creating music, writing literature, you are creating more abundance for others, not only yourself, but others too, provided your content has value. I mean, even entertainment in itself is a form of value, right? So this is, I think, a really nice way to do. When you create, you are doing, you're not particularly consuming. So I know that a lot of people might argue this is not particularly minimalistic, especially if you're into crafts, maybe it takes up more space. Again, use common sense, be reasonable, be practical, see what fits your lifestyle and what doesn't. What works for somebody, maybe knitting and having a lot of tools for knitting fulfills them and makes them happy, or having like a tool shed makes them happy, might not serve somebody else, and vice versa. So figure out what works for you. All right, number 6. Help solve other people's problems, preferably one that you had and you solved. So this is a really good one. When I became a minimalist and I kind of stopped kind of dwelling in my own problems, and I started and not wasting and putting a band-aid on my problems by shopping all the time, I was kind of forced to address like the monster of my problems. You know, I had to overcome my eating disorder. I had to overcome my money debt situation. I had to overcome a lot of insecurities that I had, because I had a lot more time. As a minimalist, you know, you're no longer fiddling with material possessions and you're not wasting all your time at the mall. So I started resolving a lot of these problems, and I've made lots of videos on 10 tips for this and 10 tips for that, because they're things that I've solved. And those videos are my best performing videos. My evergreens that solve other people's problems have been my most profitable and helpful videos, because at the end of the day, you're providing value and content for somebody else. Somebody else might be having the same problem as you, and if you can offer them a solution, you have helped not only them, but yourself. Like, you have helped yourself help others. Okay, number 7. Disentangle your self-worth from your material possessions. If you want to do more and be more, I think it would be good to not associate your value with external factors. I think a good way that I can illustrate this is kind of in gender norms. When children are young, men are praised, or boys are praised for what they do. He runs so fast, he jumps so high, but girls are praised more for what they have. Oh, she's so pretty. Oh, she has so much beauty. She has such a good personality. We're, as females, kind of indoctrinated to put our self-worth on external things, like what material possessions we have, because we feel like our self-worth is kind of like, that is an extension of us. Like, the line bleeds. Our beauty is part of our makeup, so our makeup is part of us. Like, how we dress is part of our body, part of our worth. So I mean, I can't speak for men necessarily, but I do think that this is a thing, because I have read in the subreddit of Reddit that a lot of male minimalists complain, why do most female minimalists have a lot of content based on like their makeup, their dresses, their clothes? Well, what do you think society trained us to put emphasis on? You weren't trained to or taught to put value on those things. So what I'm trying to say is that I think that for females, I'm not sure about men, maybe this is easier for men, but for females, taking our self-worth off external validations is part of the minimalism journey to being more and doing more. You have a lot of worth in what you do and being more. I don't feel it's fair that we have to put, that we have been trained that our value is on something outside of ourselves, when it's not. It's, think about all of the female people who have been more and done more. Like, take Oprah, she's done a lot, right? Like, that's where her value comes from, like what she's done for others, right? And it's unfortunate that in social media, or even just general traditional media, a lot of women are valued kind of for like what they look like, rather than their talent, rather than what they've done. So take that as you will, just some food for thought. If you disagree, comment down below and let me know what you guys think. But I think that for anybody, both men and female, it would be good to disentangle your self-worth from your material possessions. Once you do that, you'll have less of a desire to want to buy things in the store, because your validation isn't coming from that anymore. Okay, number 8. Quit the shopping addiction. It's very difficult to buy less when you're still addicted to shopping. Shopping is, I think, a very natural thing to become addicted to. As biological creatures, we need to survive, so we need to accumulate and hoard and have an abundance of material things, because that's how we would survive. A lot of grains, a lot of food, a lot of meat, right? Just accumulate. So you need to override that biological instinct and realize that, like, in a modern society, accumulating a lot of clutter from the store and bringing it home actually has the opposite effect. You actually take away your resource of money and you create more clutter, which creates more stress. You're more stressed out, so you perform worse at work, and it just becomes like a terrible cycle, right? So if you have the space and the time now that you've embraced more minimalism, is to actually work on quitting the shopping addiction. I had a pretty deep-rooted shopping addiction. I think it took me about like a year and a half to 2 years to really kick the habit. When I first started my minimalism like 6 years ago, I had to make that active decision and had to work on it. You know, I used to write in my diary what I bought, how much it cost me, how I felt, like that level of like working on myself, because that's how deep-rooted it was. I grew up downtown in the downtown core of Toronto, constantly bombarded with ads my entire life. I had to get rid of this idea that like my life's purpose is to go to work just to be able to shop and buy designer goods. Okay, number 9, start enriching hobbies. So enriching hobbies can include things such as working out, reading, exercising, volunteering, starting a side hustle. There's a lot of things that you could do that enrich your life that don't have to revolve around buying things. I know a lot of people might argue, oh, my hobby requires a lot of material possessions, a lot of crafts, a lot of materials. And again, minimalism is different for everybody. Everybody's hobbies are different. You're just gonna have to find that balance and something that brings you joy, and then how much clutter you're willing to accept that comes with it. Instead of having hobbies such as shopping and accumulating material possessions or brand name objects, you could consider more enriching hobbies. Okay, number 10, refine who your friends are and your social circle. This is going to be a harder journey to quit always buying stuff if your friends are always shopping, or if your social media feed is just constantly like, I bought a new car, I bought a new luxury handbag. Like, you keep feeding that into your brain, and in Zen we're taught that your thoughts become your reality. So you're going to be more inclined to continue living that lifestyle given what you see on social media or the type of people around in your circle. If all your friends are always constantly going to the bar to drink, or your friends are always constantly going out shopping, it's a harder habit to kick because you're immersed in that environment. So again, I'm not telling you, you know what, go ahead and declutter all your friends. You don't need them. We're social beings. Do this with like common sense and do this responsibly, so you're not kicking yourself that you burnt bridges with your family and friends. You can consider refining or at least evaluating your social circle and the kind of connections that you have with others and how it might be influencing you on a subconscious or conscious level. Okay, number 11, understand the difference between wants and needs. There is always that gray zone of where like there's that little overlap of where things are kind of wants and needs, but we'll just go with figuring out what really truly are your wants and your needs and distinguishing them. So I think a good example of this would be like something that Will said. He's like, your house is on fire, you're running, grab what you can and go out. He thinks that those are your needs. So although I don't know if your house is burning, would you run into the kitchen to grab food? That's a tough one. Comment down below what you guys think of that analogy. But what I'm trying to say is food is a need, shelter is a need, paying your bills. I mean, yeah, unless you don't want running water and electricity, it's kind of a need, right? Your phone bill, maybe you need it for work. You kind of need to assess what your needs are and then kind of then look at what are your wants. Like, do you really need a second car? Like, do you really need a wardrobe packed with clothes? Like, do you really need another couch? Do you really need another pet? Do you really need another luxury handbag? So it's just kind of assessing, like, it may feel like a need. I really need my luxury designer coffee, my Starbucks, or is it really just kind of a want? And where can we cut? And where can we like, no, this is actually part of like my life's enjoyment and I want to keep that. Okay, number 12, take a look at your home. Is it really cluttered? I think that's a good indicator of like you've kind of entered the realm of like you just buying a lot and your self-worth isn't just buying and you're not really doing. If you have a really cluttered home, how did it get cluttered, right? We brought stuff in. Most of us are not born with material possessions. We're born with just our bodies. It's the symptom of what's going on. Like, how are you spending your doing time? You're spending it shopping, you're spending it consuming, you're not particularly doing things, because most doing things usually don't generate clutter. Usually. There's plenty of exceptions we could think of, but just generally speaking, if you have a lot of clutter, it's because you've probably purchased or accumulated a lot of material things as opposed to doing things. Number 13, if there's an emergency, could you take it with you? So this is kind of a way that Will, who's more minimalistic than me, this is how he evaluates things. Like, is it really that important? Like, if there was a fire, would I run back into the house for it? This is just how his thought process is. I don't think of things like this. Like, if my house was on fire, could I take all my stuff with me? My stuff fits in 2 luggages, so probably I don't think I'd have time in a fire to pack my bags. So, but does that mean that like I need or still don't need it? I guess that can be argued and that could be debated, but what I'm trying to illustrate is that you really don't need as much as you think that you do. And if you've embraced a minimalistic lifestyle, I think you've kind of seen that in your journey. There's a lot of things that you have let go of and you've realized like, wow, I really didn't need that. It was actually more of a want, and it creates that space for you to do more in your life, whether that may be finally doing that bucket list, doing things that you always wanted to do, like all of those dreams that you had put on hold because you were busy dealing with material stuff finally start to come into fruition, and it's like really, really exciting. Number 14, if it needs something else to hold it, it's useless. So this is actually another tip from Will. I had to ask Will because I started to run out of ideas, but he's just like, we're just coming. So I was like, you know what, if this is helpful from Will, and this is like a male minimalist tip, maybe it could be useful for another male viewer, although the majority of my viewers are female. I don't know, I think I kind of have to agree with Will on this one, and there's actually also a Marie Kondo principle that you really shouldn't be buying more organizational stuff because it's just holding more stuff. And Fumio Sasaki said it well, address the nest before the pest. So instead of decluttering what's in the box, actually just get rid of the box, and you'll realize that like now that there's nothing holding these things, you're gonna have to declutter or get rid of these things. So if you have less organizational containers or just containers in general or boxes, you're less inclined to buy stuff because you don't feel like there's a place for it. That's something that Will has always advocated. Don't buy storage material just to go to the store to buy more stuff to fill these boxes. That's another thing. Get rid of your storage containers and I think the rest will follow. And in doing more and buying less is this idea that you don't need to keep things for the sake of keeping it. Keep it because you use it. And that goes in line with like doing more and being more. If something in your life is not serving you anymore, whether it's a physical thing or a non-physical thing in terms of like relationships or thought processes or belief systems or paradigms, if it's not serving you anymore and you're just kind of holding on to it for the sake of holding on to it, you could consider letting it go. Just keep what's useful in your life. And that's kind of open up the door to be able to do more things. That emotional baggage and that physical clutter won't be there holding you back from doing the things that you really wanted to do, because doing things takes space. You need to have the ability to do it. You need to have a healthy state of mind and resources and time to do it, right? If you've wasted all of those resources on buying more material possessions or accumulating or maintaining material possessions, you drain away from your finite resources from doing something more meaningful with your time, as in the list of things that we just mentioned. Alright, so that is 15 ways to do more and be more and buy less. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!